one of the things that's so interesting about the system of care development over time as well is that actually, as you said, it didn't stem from the litigation. The system of care actually stemmed from parents 20 some years ago being angry because they had to give up custody of their kids to get services, and slowly built that out across, county by county, vicinage by vicinage. And it really was the story of, parents coming together to transform a system. It wasn't the story of litigation forcing it. Early on in my time there, I think it was really, really hard to kind of have, productive conversations politically about the work, because there was just so much pressure on trying to get the new department stood up, on trying to get, kind of the first early key reform metrics, hit and in place. And I think, in a lot of ways, trying to constantly hit those targets put the department in a position where it was really hard to actually tell the story of the progress that was being made, because you're kind of always on the defensive behind some of that. And at the end of the day, that creation of that system is probably one of the biggest contributors to the success that New Jersey has in its child welfare space. And I think that's one of the things that it's one of the lessons I took to New Hampshire, certainly, when I then went to work in New Hampshire as their Director of Child Welfare and Juvenile Justice. And one of the things that in my current role I'm really talking about most is that a lot of the work that you do to improve your child welfare system is actually stuff that you're doing outside of your child welfare system. And in New Jersey, the clearest example of that is through the children's system of care, where there's still today not another state in the country that has a behavioral health system as advanced and then integrated with developmental disability services and substance use disorder services, and then serves so many kids and families that in other jurisdictions end up in child welfare, right? They end up, families, in New Hampshire when I first got there, if they had a child who needed intensive behavioral health care needs, because there was not a system in place to do that, the only way they got that was to get involved with the child welfare system. And you would find parents basically saying, I'm neglecting my child because I'm not capable of treating their behavioral health care needs. That's not a parent that's neglecting their kid. That's a system. That's a system failure, right? And that parent is taking on the scarlet letter just to get services for their kids. That type of stuff happens all over the country still today. And it hasn't happened in New Jersey for, 15 or so years. There's a disconnect between how child welfare systems, and really they're really more designed not to be child welfare systems, but child protection systems, right? That are designed to investigate abuse or neglect and try to mitigate risks associated with abuse or neglect. The way that the public views these things, I think because of the way that government talks about the work, the way that we talk about the work, the way that the work is funded, it's seen as an all-purpose child and family service system. And it really can never be that. And it shouldn't be that, right? Like, if families need help, going to the system that has the authority to remove their children isn't really the best way to get them help. And of course, in addressing abuse or neglect, you do a lot of other things to strengthen families. New Jersey probably has done more than most, maybe more than any, in terms of building things out, like permanent supportive housing and specialized substance use services for parents with children and those types of services. But at the end of the day, right, if those families are able to get what they need without coming to the attention of the child welfare system, you would have never had to open up a case. You would have never had to have an investigation. You would have never had to have that traumatic involvement with a family. And I think that's really the trick, both from a communications perspective and a messaging perspective for the field as a whole, but also when thinking about the next evolution of system redesign, right? How do we actually start to pull these things apart and just get families what they need without the coercion of a child welfare system? I was super lucky that I got to join the department at a time when, you had a lot of smart people who had kind of figured out how to do something pretty special, and got to learn from that and got to experience kind of the development and growth of a system in that way, and then take those lessons and be able to apply them in another jurisdiction, and now take those lessons and be able to apply them in a national context. So really, it's for me, I'm just really glad that I was lucky enough to step in to these roles at the time that I did, where I got to kind of learn from so many people and that I was trusted to kind of bring what I could bring to move that mission forward.